Good morning and welcome to writing. Today we're going to be looking at TEK 4.11 DII that says, I can edit my drafts to use the correct past tense form of a verb. Now, a verb, so many of you already know that a verb is one of those action words. It's what you do. You walk, you talk, you ride, you write, you count. And then we have the state of being verbs that they don't show an action, they just show what an object is. Like my dog is brown. That's is, am, are, be, being, been, was, and were are your state of being verbs. So there's only a few of those, and so they're easy just to memorize that list. But back to past tense form of those verbs. Past tense, of course, means it happened in the past. It's already happened, it's done. And that's what it says right here at the top. The past tense tells an act about an action that's happened at a time in the past or actions that are already complete. The past tense form of most verbs is just formed by adding ed. That's the main one you need to remember. 85% of the words approximately follow this rule. If you want to talk about something that happened 10 seconds ago, 10 minutes ago, or 10 years ago, you just add ed to the word. Just like this, call becomes called. If the verb already ends with a silent final E, all you have to add is D. You don't want to add ed and make it invite with an EED because anytime there are two E's in the English language, it says E. So then it would become invite-ed, and we don't want that. So you just added the D. But if the verb ends with a consonant and a Y, you change the Y to an I and add ed. So here we have hurry. I know that R is a consonant. So I'm going to change that Y to an I and add ed. So I have hurried. I hurried home on Friday after school. And here's a very interesting one. If the verb ends with a vowel and a consonant, you have to double the consonant and add ed. And I'll tell you why here. We have the word grab, okay? And if we just add ed onto this, first of all, I'm going to write it just like this. I'm going to add the ed very slowly. What does that look like? Oh, that looks like a silent final E, doesn't it? That's going to make that A say its own name. So this would be grabe. And if you add D, that's exactly what it is. This is now not the word grabbed. This is the word grabed. And grabed isn't even a word. I have no idea what in the world that would be. So in order to prevent that E from making a vowel say its own name, you must double the consonant. That's if we have a vowel and a consonant at the end of the word, you have to double the consonant and then add the ed. So it's not graved, but grabbed. We're going to take a look at a paragraph. And sometimes this is the way I see writing look in my room. And for a rough draft, that is just fine because sometimes we forget, sorry about that, we forget to write our paragraphs all in past tense or all in present tense or all in future tense. And that's fine, but that's where you must revise and edit. This is one thing you should check. So I see here the mouse darted across the kitchen floor. Mother screams and jumps on the chair. I will enter the room just as the tiny creature flashes out the door. I grabbed the broom and trapped the mouse just in time. What is wrong with this paragraph? It doesn't flow as nicely as it should. So let's go through and look at the verbs. The mouse darted across the kitchen floor. What did the mouse do? If you said he darted, you're correct. There's our verb. Mother screams and jumps on the chair. What did mother do? You're right. She screams and jumps. This has two verbs. I will enter the room just as the tiny creature flashes out the door. What will I do? I will enter. And what does the tiny creature do? The tiny creature flashes. That means they run so fast you can hardly see him. I grabbed the broom and trapped the mouse just in time. What did I do? You're right. I grab and I trapped. Now I see verbs all over the place here. I see verbs that end in ed. And we want all of our verbs, since we started in past tense, we want all of our verbs to end in ed. But here I see this verb does not. Screams. That is a present tense verb. We would want to change it to end in ed. Jumps. we would want to change it to end in ed. Now, this one's very interesting. It says, I will enter. Will means it's future tense. If all this is happening in the past, how is he going to enter into the room the next day and trap that mouse? The mouse will be long gone. So let's take out that will. I enter the room. That's a little better, but this enter is still present tense. So we want to put it in past tense. So we are going to add an ed. You're right. Okay. I entered the room just as the tiny creature flashes out the door. And here I see this is present tense again with an S on the end. There's an S on the end or no ending at all on the end of the verb like enter. Those are present tense verbs. So we want to change it to flashed. I grabbed the broom. Now remember, we don't want to grab the broom. I see my vowel and my consonant ending the word. So I'm going to add another B and then an E and a D for grabbed the broom and trapped the mouse. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but we have our past tense ending, ed. And as I was reading, ed makes 3 different sounds. The mouse darted. It says ed there. The mouse darted across the kitchen floor. Mother screamed. There it doesn't say screamed. It says screamed. It just says d. And jumped. We don't say jumped. We don't say jumped. We say jumped. So ed has 3 sounds. It can sound like ed. It can sound like just a D sound. Or it can sound like a T. All has to do with voiced and unvoiced sounds. Jumped. You want the word to flow. We want to say jumped or jumped. That's kind of hard to say because of all the sounds going together. So to make the word flow, we say jumped. So ed can have 3 sounds. I want you to remember this because when you're writing those past tense verbs, no past tense verb ends in T that I can think of. It would have to be an ed. Now, like I said, 85% of the English words will follow this rule. If you want to make a verb past tense, you just add ed. It might sound like ed, it might sound like d, it might sound like t, but you just add ed. But there's that other 15%, they're wily little things. That other 15% of verbs does not like to follow the rules. And some of them you probably already know. We're going to take a look at some of these irregular verbs. Now this prefix ir means not. So this means not regular. You don't add ed. They're not regular. They're called irregular because we don't use ed to form the past tense. There are no real rules. They're just kind of all over the place, but there are some patterns. So let's look at the chart below and see what patterns we see. I see the verb grow became grew or have grown. Know became knew or has known. Blow becomes blew or had blown. Fly became flew or have flown. I have flown many times in the past. So what this past tense with the helping verb does is it shows kind of a continuing action. I have flown many times. I've been in an airplane more times than I can count. So, or more times than I can even remember. My dad was a pilot. So you see here, this shows a continuing action. He has grown. He was growing over and over, a lot the past year, okay? Whereas this, just a plain past tense, he grew. It's just kind of boom, right there, all right? So, and you notice all of these, the OW changes to EW, or the Y here changes to EW. So EW could be a past tense verb. And one thing I notice about these verbs here, choose, freeze, break, speak, they all have 2 vowels in the middle. O, E, E-A, E-A, and they all become an O in the middle. Chose, froze, broke, spoke. Or over here, the helping verb has chosen, they add an N. Notice these helping verbs. I see a pattern here. They add an N or an EN on the end. Here I see tear and wear. Again, the 2 vowels in the middle become an O here, and then they add the N for the past tense with the helping verb. Now these are different. They are not adding O's. Ring became rang. The bell rang 10 minutes ago. Why are you late? Sing, sang. I heard you sang beautifully in Miss Hef's music class. Or the kids have sung beautifully all year. Now notice this doesn't add an N. We have ring, rang, rung, sing, sang, sung. So if you use one of those helping verbs, have sung beautifully all year in Miss Hef's class, well, that tells me kind of an ongoing action. It happened more than once. So we're going to take a look at another one. We're going to go back over here. And here we get to add an ED. And we're going to be taking a look at these rules up here. Remember, most of them you just add ED. If it already ends with a silent E, you add D. If it ends a consonant Y, you change the Y to an I and add ED. Or if it's a vowel and a consonant, then you have to double that consonant and add ED. So let's take a look here. We're going to do a couple of these together, and then you can finish the rest on your own. So play, what would we do to make play a past tense verb? And if you said we would add ED, you are correct. We would write it P-L-A-Y-E-D. But you say, Miss Raymond, it ends with a Y. Wouldn't we change that Y to an I? Let's go up and look at our rule. I got to get rid of my tool here. Hold on. It's not wanting to go away. There we go. All right. Our rule says, oh, that's kind of cool. Our rule says if it ends with a consonant Y. Is A consonant? Y? No, A is a vowel. A-E-I-O-U. That's a vowel. So we don't want to change that Y because then we have P-L-A-I-E-D. That would look weird with all those vowels in a row. We're not French. We're English. So we're just going to do P-L-A-Y. It's not a consonant. Keep it a Y. And then add the ED. Interesting. Okay. What about the word snip? I use my scissors to snip paper. I snipped a lot of paper yesterday. Now remember, I-C ends with a vowel. I is a vowel, A-E-I-O-U, and then a consonant, and the vowel says I, it's short vowel sound. So I don't want sniped, so I have to double my consonant and then add ED. This says snipped. Now, I misspelled it. Now, if I did not double that, it'd be sniped, and I don't snipe things. That's not my job. I'm a teacher. So now we have dress. You're right. We would just add an ED on the end of this. Dress. ED. Dressed. Notice there it says t, dressed, but we have to add the ED. And let's do one more, cry. I see a Y again, so I have to go and look. Is R a vowel or a consonant? You're right, it is a consonant. So since we have consonant Y, then that Y is going to become an I, and then we're going to add ED. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our study on verbs, past tense verbs today. I hope that you enjoyed, and happy writing.